Kenny Mapanga is on standby with all the conversations. Kenny, over to you.
Well, good morning to you, Kolisi, and the viewers at home. The race to see who will lead the DA continues between John Steenhuisen, who's seeking a second term, and Dr. Paul Palatse. Of course, the conversation here goes beyond the contestation, as this Congress, which is the most attended by the DA, takes place at a time where there are a number of issues in the country, and it's leading up to the 2024 Congress. So when we speak of the DA, we're speaking of the party that sees itself as a government in waiting. Keep in mind, the governing party won the last elections with 57% and the DA with 20%. So to interrogate the DA further, we're looking at some of the policies that they're going to be bringing forward leading up to 2024 to persuade South Africans to vote for the party. I'm going to start with the contentious issue of land reform, and Premier Alan Winde joins me now to elaborate further. Of course, you govern in the Western Cape, a province that the DA speaks highly of and discusses land reform issues a lot in this province, and we speak of the farms, we speak of title deeds, we speak of racial dislocation there. Your policy is quite clear. It says that there's a widespread agreement that land reform in South Africa has failed, and while you're supporting a land reform process, it looks at it in a different manner where you discuss the land needs and not necessarily this policy of expropriation of land without compensation. Just expand on the alternative of offering protection and expansion of private property rights for all.
I think, first of all, private property, if you want investment, you've got to make sure that you secure that investment. You can't come along with laws that actually say, well, your investment that you've made is now going to be taken away from you. I mean, that is a fundamental right. Second of all, I mean, I've had the privilege in over time serving in different portfolios. One of them was agriculture in our province, and of course I think there it's not even about protecting those land rights. It's also about actually having land rights. So if you have a look at agricultural land reform, we measure agricultural land reform 65%, and it's moved to 72% on where farms have been made available to people who did not have them in the past, and we give them that support. Now, that's the success rate we've got of those farms. The biggest problem is that none of those farmers who get farms through the National Department of Land Reform get ownership of those farms. In actual fact, we battle to even get leases on those farms. You can't enter into an agreement with a bank without a lease, without a formal lease. So it really is a big, big problem, not only whether you own the land, but whether you can even lease the land. And we really need to get that right. And the current system at the moment within the national government is even those land parcels that are made available, they seem to be failing wherever they are. You need to be able to give support to turn those farms into successful farms, because that's how you grow the economy.
Now, we understand that you have to protect the interests of property owners in order to attract investment, but is this fair in comparison to the majority Black South Africans you're looking at to say, let's give you a title deed and you use that title deed as collateral for economic justice? Is that fair? Because if one is living in Khayelitsha, for example, that title deed in comparison to where the racial dislocation or racially based dislocation takes place, is that a fair assessment to make as the DA if you're saying that you're a party for all?
Okay, so I think there are two answers to that question. The first is, how does government step in and provide opportunities? And I mean, we've got a project now, we call it the Better Living Model, and that has now evolved into Pinelands, where we've got the Conradi Park, where we've got thousands of opportunities that are being made available, schools, work, live, play, to people who haven't had opportunities before. And so we're showing that, making that available in areas that are not Khayelitsha. We've got two projects happening in the middle of the city of Cape Town, right in the CBD right now. We've got two major projects in the CBD to do exactly the same thing. So that's one thing. The second thing is, how do we enable economic growth? And one of those is, you spoke about title deeds, and I think that is critical. We have thousands and thousands of people who've been given a home from the government, but they don't have title. And I mean, that's very, very sad. And so we've got to make sure that those title deeds are sped up. We're trying that every single day to get more and more people with title deeds. But the interesting thing is also to look at the economy. And if you look at the investment economy into property now and property development, in actual fact, you're getting between a 20 and a 27% return on investment in residential property in Khayelitsha itself. So you're seeing there's huge demand, and through demand, you start to see, if you don't have enough supply, the actual prices start to go up. And that's what we're seeing at the moment. In actual fact, when I discuss with our mayors across the province now, where we can see that gap growing because of supply and demand, we don't have enough supply. And we've actually got to get our planning departments in the production of land and the production of property to go up, especially in our cities and our towns where the demand is so huge. Our population in the Western Cape is due to grow to 8 million by 2030. My current assumption is we're going to reach that a year and a half earlier because so many people are looking for opportunity. And we've got to make sure we find ways in which we speed that up.
Alan, how does this address inequality? If you're saying this is a title deed that you're giving to a person in Khayelitsha, they're using this title deed as collateral. Does this not deepen the cycle of poverty and inequality in the Western Cape, for example, where you govern?
At the moment, our policies, our national policies on national money that goes into it doesn't actually allow you to trade with that for years. And so what's happening is illegal trade. I think we should change that so that you can actually use that asset, but not necessarily just for anything. You should be able to use that asset for expansion of your property. Maybe you've got a 2-bedroomed home that the government has given you. You've got a title deed. How can you borrow some money using that asset to turn it into a 3-bedroomed home or a 4-bedroomed home, or enable you to run your business from your home? That should be enabled. So you should be able to unlock a percentage of that asset for business means and for expansion. I don't think you should be able to borrow money off your asset, for anything else, because then that will lead to further poverty. Using your asset, and of course, it's about risk and reward. If we can build percentages into how you can use that asset, that you don't go over 50%, because otherwise, then all that's going to happen is if you do lose it, the bank then takes over your property, and that would be the last thing that we would want.
Correct me if I am wrong. When you look at this 23-page policy proposal on land reform, one gets the impression that it's to protect a specific demographic, if you're speaking of the Western Cape, specific landowners, valuable land that people would look at as prospects of success, and not necessarily the majority of poor black South Africans. And I think that example that you've just given now of title deeds in Khayelitsha, no person would look at that as appropriate land reform or addressing land needs in South Africa.
Okay, but remember, we're talking about two different things here.
Yeah.
The one is someone who's looking for a residential property. The other one is looking to become an agriculturalist, a farmer. And of course, it doesn't help to say, all right, we're going to take this farm away from a productive farm and we're going to give it to someone else to become a productive farm based on race. That doesn't make any sense at all. How do we enable new farmers into the system? And go and have a look at the track record in the Western Cape of enabling new wine farmers, new wine makers, really seeing in the rooibos tea industry, in the grain industries, and the system that we've used where the actual industry themselves, along with our Department of Agriculture, we have industry experts that actually then say, okay, here's the business plan that's been brought in, here's the piece of land, how do we help this person become a productive agriculturist? And that's our track record that we can show, and we can show you exactly how now it is 72% success rate. That's how you actually create opportunity. You don't create a failed, unsupported entrepreneur in the agricultural sector. You're actually supporting an entrepreneur in the agricultural sector to become a success. And I mean, you can see it because our economy is succeeding. We've had double-digit growth in the agricultural sector now, even during the pandemic. And you can even see it of our proportion of South Africa's agriculture. We were 45% of South Africa's agriculture. We're now moving to 55% of South Africa's agriculture. And I'm talking about export industry that's bringing dollars and euros into the economy. So you've got to, on the back of growth, enable opportunity for new farmers to come in. We've been fought for a very long time for water rights. And so now we've just had the canal upgraded for the Bruntplay Dam. That's 5,000 hectares of new irrigation available. How do we make sure that a huge bulk of that is actually going to new farmers, emerging farmers that are able to play a role in and become the next big agriculturists in the region? And you'll see the existing agriculture is enabling and helping new agriculture become successful.
And speaking of these ambitions that you have with regards to this policy, who do you think is best fit to lead the DA up to 2024 here at this Congress?
No, I'm not going to give you an answer.
Are you keeping your vote a secret?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
Obviously, you can see I'm not full of stickers and promotional items. Obviously, this Congress must choose its leadership. It's about a leader, but it's also about a leadership team. And of course, it's about setting the tone of moving forward for the next year. And that's what this Congress is about.
Thank you so much. That was Premier Alan Winde just chatting to us here at the Gallagher Convention Centre, speaking to us a bit about the land offer that the DA has. They want to do away with expropriation without compensation and then give you an alternative offer of expansion of private property rights.